welcome back to the Krueger Show, everybody. Hope everybody's having a phenomenal Wednesday. It is March the 29th. Get things rolling on the Krueger Show with one of our favorites, Jack Hammer. The show brought to you by Taking a Pickle. Check them out. 2 locations in Northern California. They're in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday, and in Marin County and Corte Madera, 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. The brisket chili is amazing. Seriously, go try the brisket chili. Come back and let me know what you think. And the potato chips cooked in the beef fallow, unbelievable. But you can only get them in Marin County. So check it out. Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. It's lunchtime, so I'm starting to get kind of hungry. So I may just not talk Niners at all. I think I'm just going to talk food today. What are you eating for lunch? No. Anyway, in the house, Jack Hammer. And Jack, great to see you. It's been a week or two since we had you on. It was great to always good to talk ball with you. You said you were watching me with Vish last night and said, "Man, I got to get in on this." What say you? We were talking quarterbacks last night, and I made my points about what I thought about it. Vish made his points. It was a good live stream, very lively. Mm-hmm. What did you want to, what's your take on it right now? It seems like we'll get to a bunch of things today, by the way. Jed York at the NFL owners meetings, George Kittle with some comments about the extra Thursday game. So we got a lot of things that we want to get to in addition to that. But right out of the chute, let's talk quarterbacks. What's your take on what has been said this week about the quarterbacks? Does it mean something? Does it mean nothing? Give me your breakdown.
I think it means a lot. I think the 49ers were pretty straightforward with what they were going to say. And I think that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were very, I wouldn't say they were in lockstep, but they were very similar to everything they said. And I've seen a number of people who seem to think that they weren't. And I don't understand where that's coming from because both guys basically said the same thing. And this belief, this frustration that I'm seeing from a portion of the 49ers fan base regarding the comments by Kyle Shanahan yesterday that Trey Lance is going to be competing with Sam Darnold during OTAs and the frustration that seems to have caused really makes me wonder what I'm missing.
Well, I think what the rank and file fan is thinking is, you invested all this in Trey. We've been hearing Trey's the future of the franchise. We're out there buying Trey Lance jerseys, Trey. And then suddenly you're in the same press conference where you come out and say he would have had a hell of a year if he had stayed healthy. So that's your beginning reality. But then your other reality is that now he's on an even par with Sam Darnold, whose career numbers are some of the worst of any quarterback in pro football. I think that's their pushback, but I understand where you're coming from because here's the bottom line. What the fans don't get is that the whole damn thing is a competition. It's all a competition. Nobody's handed anything. That's the beauty of the National Football League. It's a true meritocracy. If you are the best, you will play. So it doesn't, all the talk is just talk, and they'll settle it on the field. And this year, right now, it's Trey Lance, Brock Purdy when he gets healthy, and Sam Darnold, and probably another guy coming in. And then we'll see where it goes from there. I think they've positioned themselves where they exactly what Kyle Shanahan said about his quarterbacks. This is what he said about his quarterbacks. He basically said that I feel we're in a very good position at quarterback. I hope all 3 quarterbacks are with us, but we will. Then he basically intimated through a bunch of things that they would listen to trade offers, but they're not shopping anybody. They're just going to be in a position where, hey, we got 2 guys on a rookie contract. Quarterbacks on a rookie contract are valuable. There's only so many of them in the draft. I just read a report this morning about Will Levis that sounds like he's just kind of an odd guy and maybe he's going to fall a little bit. We'll see. But nonetheless, the top 4 quarterbacks are all going to go right there in the top 10 of the draft, most likely. And what about all the teams that need a quarterback between 10 and 40? And what if they call the 49ers offering that pick that they have for Trey Lance. Are the 49ers going to say no, or are they going to say yes? We don't know. That part we don't know, and we'll only find out on draft day.
Yeah, we won't know. And I know you've put out there a couple of times that you think that there's a possibility with Lance getting traded during the draft. I don't see it that way. I don't think Lance is going to be traded around the draft, that portion. It doesn't make sense to me, just given where the 49ers are at this point now. If you trade him, you're really going all in on Brock Purdy, who at this point, we don't know for sure if he's going to be ready week one. I think, we've heard both Shanahan and Lynch in the last 2 days say that they will know more in 12 weeks, which is 10 weeks from tomorrow. That's their next point, that they'll know a little bit more in terms of when he could be back. He could be back for training camp. He could be week one, as Shanahan said yesterday, also week 4. Well, who knows, right? I mean, Shanahan's also the guy who said he doesn't know who's going to be alive on Sunday. So that's what it's worth. And you just kind of, you look at it, and I just don't see them making the move now. I don't see them. And part of it is, again, insulating themselves at the quarterback position. And the other piece is it will cost them almost $11.2 million against this year's salary cap if they trade Trey Lance at that point. I think the more likely scenario is that this thing runs through into training camp. And at that point, if Sam Darnold is the guy, or they're close and he decides to go that way, and Brock Purdy's healthy and they know they have him, and there's another guy that can be their number 3 possibly, maybe they pick up through the draft or what have you. At that point, if somebody comes to them, they would be willing to go ahead and ship them off, because at that point, they actually save money against the cap this year.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And, that very well, the timeline could be right on that, and they could be looking at picks in a future draft. I'm just thinking of how aggressive they're trying to be in winning right now. I mean, they're going for Javon Hargrave and building up that defensive line, because they feel like they're right on the verge of winning. So I just, be interesting to see exactly what they do, because they've got 2 quarterbacks on rookie deals, and that's a coveted position. And that's why, Shanahan expressed that. Now, it's funny because Jed York today at the owners meeting, basically said a number of things, but he said he wouldn't change anything about moving up to get Trey Lance. And I think a lot of people would be surprised that he said that. He said, I wouldn't change anything that we've made. And he wouldn't change anything that we've made about the decision with Trey. He says, I think Trey has a chance to be great, but it's a bonus when you get somebody at the end of the 7th round that ends up coming in and being very impactful for your team. I've said it multiple times with quarterbacks, whether it be with Alec or Colin, watching Jimmy and Trey, and now Brock and Trey and Sam. You can't have enough good quarterbacks. So maybe that's their position. They're going to hoard quarterbacks, but nonetheless, it's created a big talking point, because I do think that the dialogue is, for a player, that if you're going to keep a player and build them up, they've almost made it sound like Shanahan made it sound, and I thought Lynch has made it sound multiple times like they're shopping Trey.
I think that there might be some discussion around Trey and what they're going to do there, but I do think that just because of where they are, I think they're going to give Trey Lance a shot. I don't think Trey Lance is necessarily done in San Francisco. We know, here's the thing, and this is partly what you were talking about last night that kind of got me fired up, is you're talking about the folks who are saying, it's the whole ceiling versus the floor and all that kind of stuff. And I agree with you on that. I think it's a bunch of malarkey.
Ceiling's nice, but ultimately it's about winning football games. And when you're winning football games and you start critiquing the wins and being like, well, you know what? Yeah, we're 6-0, but this guy's, I've heard people knock Brock Purdy's height, his speed. You're winning games. To me, once you're winning games and you're scoring points, it's not like you're winning games 14-10, and it's like, wow, he's just pulling it out. He's really leaning on a killer defense. They're scoring almost 33 points a game with Brock Purdy. So I just don't understand the people who are like, think that should be just like, yeah, that's kind of beside the point. Yeah, is he playing great, and is he undefeated, and is he scoring 33 points a game? Yeah, but look what the future, we need to go with somebody with higher end potential. I mean, higher end potential to do what? To win more than being undefeated? I don't know. I mean, all I'm saying is have a little respect for the difficulty of playing the position and what you saw with Brock. What we're really saying there is that he made it look so easy that I think a lot of people have made it look, don't think that he did a whole lot. Like anybody could have done it. But he's really, I think, pretty special. I think they realize that he's pretty special. And my guess is that they will entertain a trade. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'm just, ahead of it by a couple months as far as the timing on it. But I do think I can see their language all sound. Lynch basically sounded like, you know what, this guy needs to play, and he basically almost set it up like the James Wiseman situation, like his timeline and our timeline don't mesh. Shanahan, I felt like when he basically came out and he said, we're in a good position at quarterback, and then he basically said he wanted two quarterbacks at the end, and intimated that anybody could be traded at any time. And I just think that they're just in a position where they can just sit there with Trey, and if somebody bowls them over with an offer, because there's only so many quarterbacks, they can take it, and if not, they can just ride it out.
Yeah, and I don't. Here's the thing: is that everything you're saying makes total sense, and I totally get it. Again, in terms of trading Lance, the possibility of trading Lance, I agree with you 100%. That I do think there's a possibility that Trey Lance gets traded. We are on the same page with that. I just think the only thing for me is I look at where the 49ers have been since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over at the quarterback position, in terms of all the years that they lost because of injury to Jimmy Garoppolo. And I have a hard time with them maybe, saying that they're going to go ahead and they're going to move off of Lance at this point when they're not 100% certain that they're going to have Brock Purdy prior to week 1. And the problem here is that 12 week mark doesn't come until after the draft. It's going to be June 2nd is 12 weeks post-surgery for Brock Purdy. And that's too late for the 49ers to know as far as the draft this year. So that's the only reason. But everything you're saying in terms of the reasons behind it, it's really good. I can see it. The James Wiseman piece that you made, I can understand that too. I look at this and I think that the 49ers want it to be Brock Purdy. I think I listened to what was said yesterday, and a lot of folks jumped on a couple of things that Kyle Shanahan said without listening to the whole comment. One of those was when he said that it could be, at any point between, week 1 and week 4. Well, he also said that they're not going to know more until week 12. And at week 12, they could find out that it might be training camp. For whatever reason, the really loud voices, who are mostly very pro Trey Lance people, are climbing onto the fact that it's going to take longer for Purdy because they don't want Purdy to be back. I think that a lot of the folks that are very pro Trey Lance, I think they know that it's going to be a very uphill climb if it's Trey Lance against Brock Purdy in a quarterback competition straight up. And I don't understand necessarily why they're so upset about the stuff with Sam Darnold. The same people that are telling you that Brock Purdy has such a low ceiling and he can't get any better are the same people who will tell you that, it's the same stuff about Sam Darnold and how bad he is. They'll tell you, all these things. They'll tell you that Trey Lance needs to play more. And, you look at these guys and you look at what they've done over the course of their time in San Francisco. This is Trey Lance's last chance. And I think the 49ers are going to give it to him. And that's what the one thing that I heard from Kyle Shanahan yesterday, and just kind of reading through it, he talked about how well that Brock Purdy played last year. And he said also that, that he thinks that if he had stayed healthy, he would have been able to do something similar to that. And because with Purdy being hurt, Lance has an opportunity to regain where he was. He talked about how the injury to Purdy opens up the opportunity for him, just not knowing exactly where they're going to be. And I just think that I do truly believe that Trey Lance is going to have a shot during training camp and during this offseason to be the guy. And for me, the one, like I said in the beginning, and it's not just the 49ers fans, it's people who do this. It's the content creators and some who have very large followings who are screaming very loud about being upset about a possible quarterback competition. I just don't understand it.
I mean, the rest of the guys in the room are competing. So it's totally normal to have a competition at the quarterback position. Now it just depends how you want it set up. Some people like a total, a wide open setup where it depends what kind of players you have. If you have comparable players, then you want a competition. If you think you have comparable players, you want to have a competition. If you have a star quarterback, then maybe you want defined roles, right? And I could see it as well as, one of the things I've brought up is that I think that, as this becomes a more and more of a controversy, it seems like literally immediately as soon as the last couple of days have indicated that if Brock Purdy is healthy, Brock Purdy in their minds is their number one quarterback. And that rubbed a lot of people wrong. I mean, it was like, wow, it was amazing how many people pushed back on that. And we're like, he's done very little and the too small of a sample size. And, and all they really mean by that is that when they get on the field for the first time, if Brock's healthy, he's going to go with the ones. They're going to start with him, and then they're going to move from there. But it's all basically a meritocracy. If he plays poorly, he comes out. If Trey plays well, he's in there. If Darnold looks, I mean, not every year, by the way, are they open-minded. Last year was an example. Last year was a Trey Lance year, and Brock Purdy was just there to get better and, maybe try to battle for a roster spot. There wasn't a legitimate competition. I think the difference that's clear from listening to Shanahan and Lynch is that this year it's a different deal. They have a different look at it. Brock's their number one, and they're having a competition behind him. That's the way I looked at it from at least that's what I heard from them.
Yeah, well, and I think that's how it's going to play out if Brock Purdy's back, right? If Brock Purdy shows that he is healthy and he can be out there and he can play, he's going to have that opportunity. The only way that changes is if Trey Lance all of a sudden performs like the guy the 49ers used 3 first-round picks to grab, if all of a sudden he does something that you and I have not seen him do on a football field since he came to San Francisco, if that's what he's able to accomplish during training camp, that's how he wins the job, right? That's how he takes it. And that's kind of the way I saw it be set up yesterday by Kyle Shanahan, is that Brock Purdy played at an extremely high level for 8 weeks. And it's going to be very hard to knock that off. But that doesn't mean they're not going to give him the chance. It's very similar. What I heard him say yesterday was very similar to what he said in 2021 when Trey Lance was a rookie. And it was about beating out Jimmy Garoppolo. And he said at that point, it's going to be very hard for a rookie to come in and beat Jimmy Garoppolo out of the starting position. As it went out, they had a competition. At one point around the Kansas City game, John Lynch went on KMBR, talked about how Trey Lance was pushing him. And at that point, I think he was pushing him. And the more they fed him, the more separation became between those two guys. I do expect to see them compete if Purdy's healthy. I would expect Brock Purdy to win that job because I think Brock Purdy's just a better quarterback overall. But I think I don't buy into this that they're not going to give Trey Lance a shot and that Trey Lance is out the door. I understand people are upset about him maybe having to compete with Sam Darnold. If you're upset about Sam Darnold and him having to compete with Sam Darnold, a couple of things. One, I mean, if you want to look at Sam Darnold's career, he struggled. If you want to watch Sam Darnold last year with the Carolina Panthers and you turn it on and you don't pay attention to the name on the back of the jersey and you just watch the guy play, you see a guy who goes out and does everything that we see of Trey Lance on the field in San Francisco and a little bit more.
The only thing I'll say, it's like nobody's going to ever devalue an asset and be like, we don't like this player and we're not satisfied and we're going to be trading him. You know what I mean? So it's like everybody's loved until they're gone. And then it's like, oh, we love him. We love him. We love him. We love him. Oh, we got rid of him yesterday. Yeah. We stopped loving him, it's like, and that's the way it works. So if you really think about it, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have said a lot of nice things about Brock Purdy. They really have.
Mhm.
About it, the
Yes.
way he plays the game. They really
Mhm.
have. In this last sit down, Kyle Shanahan, when Sam Darnold came up, he said he has as good a skill set as there is. As good a skill set as there is. Okay. You can see it. You can see his ability. He said, I've always liked him as a prospect. I've always liked how he throws. That's what he said.
Mhm.
So he's complimenting Sam Darnold. But when it comes time for them to talk about Trey Lance, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan never say anything about Trey Lance other than compliment who he is as a person. Have you noticed that? They never say, you know what, Trey is just absolutely one of the great young throwers in our league. No. Trey's future is boundless, and no. It's very much like, Trey's, the makeup is off the charts. This kid is he's a better kid than we even realized. You know what I mean? It's never
Mhm.
about his football. It's always about his character. I think they loved his character when they drafted him. I just think that they don't love his football. And now that Purdy has played this well, they have what they need, which was the rookie quarterback, or the quarterback on the rookie contract. And now they actually have a quarterback who has one more year on that rookie contract. So, I hear you as far as cap maneuverings, and it probably isn't right. But if somebody calls at the 20th pick and says, we'll give you our first round draft choice for Trey Lance, not saying that they could get that, because I don't think that they probably could. But if that happened, you're saying that
Yeah.
because of cap reasons, they would say no.
Yeah, somebody's going to, I don't expect somebody to do that. I think that's part of the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying, because I don't expect a team to come out and give that kind of money or kind of a pick to them. But if somebody was to come up and say, hey, we'll give you the number 15 pick in the draft straight up for Trey Lance, I think if you're John Lynch, you say yes as fast as you can and hang up the phone before you screw it up.
And that's what I'm saying. Look at the quarterbacks look at how
Sure.
many teams in the NFL need quarterbacks.
Mhm.
Look at the number of quarterbacks. They're all projected to go in the top 7. Then it comes down to, if you're out there, hey, I can have Trey Lance, or do I want to draft Hendon Hooker? Do I want to draft Tanner McKee? I mean, there's that range there between, I would say, 15 and 50, where if somebody offered me that pick and I'm John Lynch, I think I got to take that. So, but you're saying that the cap hit is extraordinary. I'm not a cap guy, so I don't know the cap ramifications, but if it could be, worked out, I could definitely picture. I mean, if you look at the list of teams that are between 10 and 25, there's got to be 7 or 8 teams there that are going to be in the market for a young quarterback. And if Trey Lance is as good a player as a lot of people believe he is, then the 49ers weren't the only team that had interest in him when he was coming out. There may be a team that doesn't have a quarterback that offers a pick between 15 and 50 for Trey. And in that situation, if Brock's your starter and Darnold's right there and you can draft somebody else, I'm just saying the possibility, I think, exists that they move him here.
Yeah, yes. And I agree. I think my take on it is that they won't, but at the same time, I'm not saying that it's a 100%. I do think if it's a 15, if it's a 30, if it's up in that range, there's a possibility. I think listen to what John Lynch said on Monday. There might have been a little bit of gamesmanship in there about when he was asked about trading up, and he said, no, I like where we are. I think the meat of this draft is in the middle rounds. I'm not just saying that because of where we are, but again, maybe that's just a little bit of gamesmanship on his part. We're not interested, but again, that's a possibility that they go in that direction and they try to move. Maybe don't try to, but they get a call that they just can't refuse and they decide to go with Lance. Again, I know what you're saying when it comes to Sam Darnold. I did a little film review on my channel on Sunday and put some clips on Twitter as well. And you watch the guy play, and he does really well. There's a number of folks who are talking about how good the Detroit Lions are going to be next year. The Detroit Lions are the team that a lot of people are saying this is the team to beat in the NFC that's going to really threaten the 49ers. And some of the reasons that they're saying that are the moves they made this year, but they also are pointing back to the way that they finished last season, how they got back into the playoff race and how they would have been in there if it wasn't for a bad loss. But one of their bad losses down the stretch was to Sam Darnold in Carolina. Sam Darnold was 15 of 22 in that game, 250 yards, touchdown. ran for a score on his own read, ran an option where he pitched it for a touchdown to take the first score of the game. He was all over the field. He looked exactly like the player that everybody wants Trey Lance to become.
I thought Mariota in the Atlanta game was the exact kind of, gave the Niners the exact picture of how valuable Trey could be running that exact offense. Because when you don't know if the quarterback's going to keep it or if the running back's going to get it, I mean, think about that game. The Niners were beat up a little bit in that game. They weren't 100%, but Mariota completed 84% of his passes. He was absolutely deadly on third down. Their running backs were fairly ordinary. They were running just dive plays, but you didn't know the mesh point was really sold well. You didn't know who had the ball. You watch that, then you watch Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, and you think, you know what? Trey can be both. He can be a pocket passer and he can be the option element and the read option master was, because to me, the one thing that I thought, you said, some people said that coming out of North Dakota State, Trey was advanced. The one area where I saw real advancement was his play action game, his ball handling from under center in the play action game, his ball fakes, the way he would sell it with his shoulders. It was very veteran like for a guy playing at the FCS level. So to me, I think there's some, advantages to his game. There's some development there that people don't realize that he's advanced in, that he is really advanced in.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I like about Lance, and you can see all the reasons that they liked him. You just take it back. And one more thing, and sorry, I keep kind of changing the subject around a little bit, but I was talking about Sam Darnold and the reason why people I think are sleeping on him a little bit. And another topic that I'm seeing a lot of is that Kyle Shanahan wants this running kind of quarterback, and that's why he went out and got Sam Darnold, what have you. I don't think that's the case. I think the best years of his tenure as an offensive coordinator, the first one was in Atlanta. When he had Matt Ryan, he was able to light up the scoreboard with a quarterback that could hit his back step, deliver the ball on time, and they blew it out, right? And that's what we saw this year with Brock Purdy. Now, in terms of the athletic quarterback, I think he has that all built into a system. And that's one of the things with Kyle Shanahan that's driving me crazy. And Kyle Shanahan's not driving me crazy. It's the takes on Kyle Shanahan that are driving me crazy. He has an offense that fits any kind of quarterback. His offense will work well if you have a quarterback that's more of a mobile guy that can run the zone read, all that kind of stuff. He has an offense around that. It fits seamlessly in there. It fits seamlessly if you have a guy that is a drop back pocket quarterback that has the ability to move around like Brock Purdy. I just don't see one specific type of player being the archetype for Kyle Shanahan's offense, except for this one trait, the ability to be consistent and for him to understand that when he calls a play, he knows what you're going to do. And that's what Brock Purdy gives him.
But I mean, if you go, the one thing that like Purdy and Darnold are both known for, and Trey Lance as well, he's already demonstrated it, is that mobility within the pocket. I mean, Purdy's got this incredible escapability, high-end quickness.
Absolutely.
Lance has clear explosive abilities to get away. I thought that second half against the Texans, he really moved well in the pocket. And then, I mean, there's no question that Darnold has, going back to SC, was always kind of known as for his mobility within the pocket, even though he's never really been a dual threat guy. But yeah, I mean, it's that they have three. The one thing I like about their quarterback room, they got three quarterbacks that are in their prime. And if they're healthy, all three of them theoretically could start.
Yes.
Darnold has not played well. So I can't really sit there and say, yeah, I think he's going to be really good. It's based on nothing. He turned the ball over a ton at SC. He turned the ball over a ton in the NFL. He had 1 6-game stretch where they went 4-2, and he looked like he had some growth there. And he does throw, if you talk about Matt Ryan and that incredible offense with Atlanta, they averaged over 8 yards on first down, and Matt Ryan was just hitting these little dump offs to Tevin Coleman and their other backs. And, they had just unbelievable success on first down. And I think Shanahan envisions some of that with Darnold. With the weapons that they have, just get it out quick, spread it around, and just keep the chains moving, but get a lot of yards on first down by using your weapons. I mean, that's we'll see if Sam Darnold can take care of the football in San Francisco, because he really didn't with the Jets or the Panthers or at SC.
Well, he was pretty good with the Panthers last year. I mean, right. Last year he was. I mean, it was a short sample size. We're talking about small sample size, 6 starts. The first 5 starts, he had 1 turnover. He had 3 interceptions total. 2 of those coming in the final game. He only had 1 up to that point. And this brings up a really interesting point, right? Christian McCaffrey and how his impact on the 49ers offense. You talk about turnovers, and that's one of the big things with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think why we saw Jimmy Garoppolo turn a corner before he injured his foot is he could now just dump it off to Christian McCaffrey and let McCaffrey do the work. He could take the read down the field. If it wasn't there, he knew he could check it down, pick up 7 to 8 yards, didn't have to worry about it. I think that played into Brock Purdy's wheelhouse as well. I think it plays right into what you're talking about with Sam Darnold from what I've seen of his play in Carolina last year. He's exceptionally athletic and get out of the pocket on those little dump offs and stuff like that if he needs to. And the point is, now we need to see is, can Trey Lance do those things? Can Trey Lance do that? Is he going to get an opportunity to show that he can? We'll see. And that's the question I think the Trey Lance supporters are asking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're looking at that going, hey, Trey was your guy, and now he's sharing time with Sam Darnold, and they view Sam Darnold as a failed player. But you got to remember this. They're all just prospects. Sam Darnold's 25. Trey's younger than that. Guys figure it out at different rates. Shanahan basically told us yesterday he's always liked Darnold. And here he's bringing in a player that he's always liked. Obviously, Shanahan believes that he can turn Sam Darnold into something that's far greater than what Sam Darnold has been. And if he can, that's going to be a hugely positive move for the Niners, because that means they're going to have a room full of quarterbacks in a league that they can win with, in a league where there's not near enough quarterbacks. I mean, the demand is always greater than the supply, and that's just kind of the way it is. I just think there's a very good chance that there's going to be a team, like the public says, 3rd round pick, 5th round pick. I think there's a team that would offer a much higher pick, and I think it's going to be kind of a tough decision on draft day. And then somebody asked in the chat over here, here's a good one here from Uncle Salt. He said, Krug and Jack, if they trade Lance for a 1st or 2nd round pick, when do they draft quarterback 3? I would say, they got 3 picks there at the end of the 3rd round. They're going to fill 3 needs right there. And I don't think quarterback will be one of them, but if they had a quarterback that they loved that was right there, that's where the 2nd tier or 3rd tier quarterback probably goes.
Absolutely. And if there's a quarterback right there that fits what they're looking for, and they were to pick up that quarterback in round 3 or round 5, it doesn't really matter if it's 3, 5, 7. After that, it all fits right into what their structure is in terms of cap space and guys that they can grow with and build. And so, I'm not totally against the Lance trade. I've just explained my reasons why I don't think it'll happen. But hey, if it happens and the 49ers are able to get a guy maybe a little bit higher, like you're saying here, that would be a good deal. And then let me ask you this, Larry. It's not a question over there, but if the 49ers wanted to make a jump up that high, do you have a name in mind that if you were John Lynch, you'd be pulling the trigger on right there? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, you mean in the draft, is there a player would I trade up for?
Yeah, you're trading Lance to get this pick because you're probably doing it because there's a player that you want to grab.
Well, I mean, whatever you think is your primary need, you can get the top player on the board. Like if you want, if you felt like offense, a lot of people think, right tackle. I mean, the kid Skoronski from Northwestern, I think's a really good prospect. A lot of people think Paris Johnson's very, very special. I'm not necessarily a huge Paris Johnson fan, but the tackle from Georgia is pretty intriguing. I mean, there's a number of people, if tackle is your spot. To me, like if you're asking me, I like Kalijah Cansey. I mean, if you're sitting there and you're gonna, get up high in the draft, I would try to trade back down a couple spots and see if I could get Kalijah Cansey. I don't know if you've watched Kalijah Cansey, but he's kind of like an Aaron Donald type player. I mean, he's undersized but crazy strong, fast, incredibly productive, defensive player of the year in the conference. If you watch Pitt, he's kind of like an Aaron Donald in that he's an undersized, defensive lineman. Now he basically could play any spot. He's like an edge. He could play a 3 technique. He could be a 5 technique. I mean, he's really, really special. A lot of people think he could be a power end, or he could be an interior player, an undersized interior player. He's kind of the same size as like Kevin Givens, but he's just awesome. I mean, he's 6 feet 285, but which is an odd size and weight. As far as that makes you like the ultimate tweener. But this guy's so athletic, so powerful, so dominant. And since they're going with pass rush as, a dominant front is like the name of the game, you get this guy with Hargrave and what you got, and now you got a dominant front. Now you got a dominating front. So, we'll see. We'll see that's the direction I would go. Safety. What do you think is the primary need, Jack, going into the draft?
I think they filled up a lot of their spots, but I still think safety is a spot that they need to go out and pick up somebody, because I think you're looking at this probably being the last year that you would see Tayshaun Gibson on this team. I think they're going to draft a guy at safety that can be the long-term future there. I think right tackle is a spot that makes a lot of sense for the Flyers to go after, maybe early. So like when you're talking about Skoronski from Northwestern, if they're able to get up that high with the trade of the quarterback there, that would make a ton of sense. And he's not going to be that expensive in terms of their costs down the road, for 4 or 5 years that he's here. So I think you look at safety, right tackle, possibly. I think you also look at defensive end right now. I think they're decent there, but it would be nice to get one more guy that can kind of be as a rotational piece in there. And cornerback is a spot too. You look at corner, I think they're pretty good with their starters, right? But if they can get another guy that can rotate in, I'm not sure where they are right now on Ambry Thomas. I don't know how much belief they have in him anymore. It seemed like they really lost their faith in him as last season went on. And so maybe another corner fits the need as well for the 49ers.
Yeah, that's a good call. In fact, if they were, looking at the board of who's slotted to go where on tankathon.com, check it out. The couple guys that jump out to me. Okay, if they could get a first round pick for Trey Lance, who would I want? Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, they say is going to go 11th. Really intriguing offensive tackle, best offensive tackle. But Broderick Jones has just a crazy athletic build and maybe the better pro. Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, to me is so safe. And then Deonte Banks, the cornerback from Maryland, is a true number 1 corner. I mean, the Niners haven't had a true number 1 corner in a while. And this guy's a dominant number 1, long-armed, dominating, suffocating man-to-man corner from Maryland, who's really, I think, could be a huge impact guy. And then there's Kalijah Kancey. And then if you went further down the list, Mozzie Smith, but they just got Hargrave. But depending on how they view the future with Armstead, Mozzie Smith from Michigan is, he has to be seen to be believed. I mean, 6'3", 325, crazy measurables, really strong, really fast. He's projected at the end of the first round. So those are the guys probably that I would think of. But then I'll tell you the wild card in this draft is the kid from Northwestern, Adi Tomiwa Adebawore, who he's also in that Kalijah Kancey mold in that he's 6'1", 280. But, I mean, this guy looked incredible in the All-Star game workouts. And then you watch some of his film, and he's ridiculously strong. And then he went to Indy and had one of the great workouts. So that guy could be a fast riser as well. But you know what I'm saying? A difference maker on their front seven, or a number 1 corner, or an offensive playmaker like a Mayer who you think could be a Pro Bowl tight end. I mean, something like that I think could add to your football team quite a bit.
Absolutely. They need the one spot that I didn't mention, you mentioned it a little bit, was tight end. I think tight end, that's the one that I didn't get to that I should have, because right now they have, I like I like Rostwelly. I think he has really good hands. He's just not a guy that's a big time playmaker. They don't really throw to those guys a whole lot other than George Kittle. That's the interesting piece. It seems like it's George Kittle, and I think their second tight end really when it comes to their passing game is Cal Juszczyk. They need to get another guy in here. And if it's somebody in the top of the draft like that they decide that they're going to go with and really build around, that would be a good move as well, I think.
John Wayne throws in the super chat. He says, please stop trying to trade Trey Lance. When Warriors go down in battle, capable replacements are needed to step in. We need some NFL Films music. The
Yes.
49ers need 3 good quarterbacks. How the West was won by John Wayne.
We need John Facenda in here to narrate you.
Don't. When Warriors go down, Trey Lance stepped up and the 49ers moved on to the NFC Championship game. Gizmo Maltese, the sample size on Purdy is too low. He could be a Nick Foles or a Chad Pennington. Who knows? It would be crazy to get rid of Lance now. What do you think? Is it are you fearful at all that Brock Purdy is he's simply Jeremy Lin, just a year or two, a few years removed in a different sport? Is it a bonanza? Was it a phenomena? But it's a shooting star, and he's going to show up next year, and he's going to be awful. And that it just, oh my God, they hitched their star to a guy who's just nothing. Do you expect Brock Purdy to just be a zero?
No, I don't think they got hoodwinked here by Brock Purdy. I think he's the real deal. I think he went in, he stepped in, performed at a really high rate. I mean, I just don't see it. And we've heard a lot of conversations in these last 2 days about the number of reps that players have had or haven't had and all this kind of stuff. Brock Purdy, one last thing on Brock Purdy in terms of like the amount of reps that he got. Brock Purdy took half the reps of all the other quarterbacks during training camp because he only got 2 to 4 for the first 1s and 2s. Remember that? This is the guy who, how many reps did Brock Purdy have with the starters during the offseason period and training camp? He didn't get any. He didn't get any reps with the starters, really, other than maybe a handful before he stepped in against Miami. And it didn't cause him a darn bit of an issue. The guy just stepped in and played right away. And I don't get it. We've seen it on the field. It's not potential. It is his ability to play. And I don't think he's done. I think he can still get better. The people that are talking about the areas of weakness and they're showing those, all they're doing is showing you where he can improve.
Well, I think the argument is that Brock Purdy had 4 years to start at Iowa State, and so he came out of college really refined, and Trey needs these reps. I think that's the argument. The people that are like, what? Trey needs reps to develop, and now you introduce Sam Darnold to the mix, who's failed in a couple spots, and now you're talking up Darnold, and it plays kind of odd when you really think about what they've invested in Trey. But ultimately, it also speaks to they're either covering themselves, they're either going to move Trey, but then you got to ask yourself, if they're not going to move Trey, then Sam Darnold came here. The best that Sam Darnold could do was to be the third string quarterback. Is that where Sam Darnold's star has slipped to? Or did he just want to be with Shanahan so bad that he would take a third job? Or is it possible that they said, hey, you know what? We're going to clear this for you and you're going to be number 2. I don't know. It's an interesting situation because they've had opportunities to compliment Trey and they just haven't done it. And it's like, it makes you kind of wonder, why can't you just complimented Brock Purdy. We just heard you complimenting Sam Darnold, but you've never said anything about Trey other than he's a hell of a guy. And that just kind of makes me think that maybe they don't love him as a prospect as much as I think, or as much as I do, and maybe they're going to move him.
Hey, and that's part of it too. I do think that could be the case. You look at the way that this whole thing unfolds. Trey Lance, what is his greatest strength other than the fact that he is a very smart kid who seems like he has a good head on his shoulders? What area of his game takes you and makes you think that he is going to be a superstar?
I mean, the thing that I like the most about him is the mental part.
Mhm.
I think he's and the combination of the mental smarts and the desire. So I think that's going to get him through. And also he's really, really strong, physically strong. So I think, I think he can handle the punishment of the NFL game. I think he's got the kind of body where I could see him playing 15 years in the NFL. I think he's going to play a long time. So yeah, so I would say I think mentally, I think he sees the game really, really well, and I just think also, his ability to me, the processing, I think, is where he's going to be. That's his strength, and also the ability just to to I think with more coaching and more reps, he's going to be a really good third down player.
Yeah, I could see that.
That Niner guy says it's frustrating Trey got hurt. We still haven't had a chance to see it, but this team is not going to let a quarterback develop while they are going to win a title. Sorry, Kyle Shanahan won't do it. Hope Trey can show out.
I disagree with you here, that Niner guy. They went into 2022 and they gave the keys to the castle to Trey Lance. This was Trey Lance's team. He was the quarterback. They gave everything to him. He was going to be the guy. If he didn't get hurt in week 2 against Seattle, he would have continued playing. He was not going to be replaced unless he was injured, and it just happened to be in week 2. So this is the other part of it too that I just don't understand. I see a lot of folks talking about this. I mean, I can understand the discussion points, but each of those discussion points has a very solid reason behind it as to why we haven't seen Trey Lance develop at this point. And you look at Trey Lance. Let's just go through Trey Lance real quick. 2021, he had an opportunity to win the job, didn't win it. 2022, they gave it to him, and he got injured. And then now this year, they're saying that he's going to compete. I would like to know this, and I keep hearing that the 49ers have failed at the quarterback spot. I just don't see it that way. I think the 49ers have they thought they had Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo, when he was healthy, did a very good job for the 49ers. You talked about, Brock Purdy, Larry, in terms of, being able to actually get out there and win the games and make the plays that help you win. I think to an extent, Garoppolo did that. He was very up and down in doing it, but at the end of games when plays needed to be made, other than one really big loss that happened in the end of the 2019 season, he did it quite often. I see Trey Lance coming in and just not taking full advantage of the opportunity that's been given to him for one reason or another.
808 Niner. What I don't get is how they evaluate Trey. Only 4 games. Brock Purdy won games, but Trey never got to play with this team. If they trade Trey and he is who they thought he was, and Brock Purdy hits his ceiling, they look bad. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's not even, they're not even really, to me, everybody wants to relate the two. It's only partially related. I mean, they're related. Why? Because we're all concentrating on the 49ers, but they're not. I mean, they're different guys, different careers. I mean, what Brock does and Trey. I mean, to me, every situation is not fit for every situation for every player. The 49ers want to win now. Trey probably needs 2 years to develop. Maybe not. Maybe he needs 8 games to develop. Maybe he needs 6 games to develop. The nice thing is when you see him in this camp and you see him in the preseason, he should be quite a bit better. He'll know the offense a lot better. He'll know these receivers better. He'll have better receivers around him. Who knows? We may see an absolute, huge jump forward in his performance. It wouldn't shock me at all. Why? Because he hasn't played very much. When you haven't played very much, your growth can be significant in a short amount of time. So I expect him to play really well and get to a different level. And then we're having a different conversation because then you're seeing it. And then he's probably going to get the first month of the year. If you ask me, I think Trey's going to beat out the way it looks right now. I would say Trey beats out Darnold and is the starter until Brock comes in week 4. And then, we'll see after that. That would be my guess. If you say, what do I think is going to happen? I think Trey winds up beating out Darnold. Maybe beating up, but definitely beating out. Gizmo says,
Well,
go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say, I think if Trey Lance starts week one, if he starts for let's say that scenario plays out where he starts for 4 weeks. If he starts for 4 weeks, the 49ers start off winning games and he is playing at a high level. I don't necessarily know if they would swap out Lance for Brock Purdy at that point. If the offense is performing at the level that they expect it and they're winning games, I have a hard time seeing that they would take Trey Lance off the field in favor of Brock Purdy.
Gizmo Maltese says the sample size on Purdy is too low. He could be a Nick Foles or a Chad Pennington. Who knows? It'd be crazy to get rid of Lance right now. We already read that one. But I will say this. He's not Nick Foles. He's not Chad Pennington. I feel pretty confident in saying that. George Kittle, another topic here before we jet. George Kittle said, I don't know if you noticed this, but he came out. He's like, who agree? He sent a thing to the NFLPA and he put it out for the public. He said, who agreed to the extra Thursday night game? There's going to be 2 Thursday night games going forward. And to me, this is a terrible idea. And this is, if you're a fan, you should push back hard on this because it's bad. There's the old win-win situation. This is the opposite of that. This is the lose-lose, okay? One, the players lose because the turnaround and the beat up on their body is significant. They're basically having to turn around and play a football game. Sometimes 4 days later, they have very little rest. It really is not good for them. The quality of football is really bad for us. So why we don't want that quality of football? The players don't want to be playing in these games. It's their bodies that create these TV shows. I mean, I get it. You want more ratings, you want more money. Figure out a different way to do it without taking your workforce and just absolutely sticking it to them. This, to me, I don't think this is the right thing to do for their bodies. I don't think this is the right thing to do for marketing the product. I don't think the games are that great. To me, they ought to look for a new revenue stream and ditch Thursday night. Jack, give me your thought.
Well, I need you to answer a question for me real quick because I'm not 100% up on this one. They're talking about teams having to play a second Thursday night game, correct? Where it's not just one game, but there's a possibility that they're going to have to play 2, right?
Right.
Okay. And I think the only way that this makes sense is if it's on a situation where a team is playing maybe back-to-back Thursday night games, maybe coming off of a bye week, and then they go into a Thursday night game and another one, something like that. I don't see a team playing on a Sunday, then playing on a Thursday and having to do that multiple times in the course of a season. I think scheduling wise, let's hope that the NFL does it this way, is that they make it so that those teams that are playing multiple Thursday night games are doing it where they're not having to play on a short week more than once, because that's where it's bad, is when it's more than once on that short week. That's the injury concern, all that kind of stuff. If you're able to say, like, for example, the Cowboys, they're going to play on Thanksgiving. Well, maybe they play the Thursday night the week before, and then they play on the Thursday on Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. That's where it makes sense. Otherwise, I think it's an awful idea, and I would agree with you and George Kittle as well.
The 49ers, according to Mark DeLucci of Niners Nation, met with the Pittsburgh running back Israel Anabakanda at the Pro Day. He spent 3 seasons with Pitt, 2,500 yards from scrimmage, 31 touchdowns over the course of his career. He declared for the draft after a great year. He had 1,400 yards this year, 6 yards a carry, 20 touchdowns. And he's considered to be a fast guy. He turned in a mid-sub 4.3 40 at his pro day on Thursday. Only 3 running backs recorded sub 4.4 at the combine. So Abanikanda also had a 41-inch vertical and a 10.8 broad jump. To me, there is one spot. It's so funny because I wanted to ask you about this. If there's one spot that you think, man, you could really change the look of this football team, where would it be? For me, it's right here at running back. This guy sounds super intriguing from Pittsburgh. I got to watch film on him. Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina is a 2-step full speed quickness guy. They missed Mostert's home run ability. And I think if they had a super fast running back, that would add a dynamic that this offense does not really have. They've got electric speed with Danny Gray and Ray McLeod outside, and God knows Kittle's fast at tight end. They have Dwelly now to back, but they don't have that speed back. And this guy could be it. Keaton Mitchell could be it. What do you think of the speed? How vital do you think a speed running back is to what they got?
That's when the 49ers offenses have been at their best, right? Was when they have a guy that can take it all the way to the house from the running back spot. We've seen them doing that over the last 2 years with wide receivers, whether it was Ray McLeod last year with the one run that he had, or Deebo Samuel, a couple of different times. They've had to go that direction since 2019 when they had, they had a couple of them in 2019. Matt Breida as well was right there too with Mostert earlier on in the season. He was their home run guy. So if they can get a guy that can take it to the house, that can be another weapon in the backfield, and they're not having to use one of their high picks to do it, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think there's question marks around Elijah Mitchell and his ability to stay healthy. So I wouldn't be shocked or surprised at all to see the 49ers grab a running back at some point here.
Jack, do you expect them to make a big free agent signing before the draft, or you think they're done with their free agent spending?
I think they're done with the big free agent spending. They need to add some more guys to the roster, but I think for the most part, they're done with their big spending. I think there's the only spot that's out there that you might look at is defensive end, and I just don't see them going after a guy like Unique Ngakoue as much as they have a need to kind of get after the quarterback. I don't know if Ngakoue really fits for what they're looking to do in terms of that defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa.
What would you say is your outside of the Hargrave move? What do you think is their best move of the offseason thus far?
Isaiah Oliver. I think he was a great pickup for them. I think that I said it right after it happened. I said that the 49ers defense is better now than it was in the NFC Championship game. I think they're much better along the defensive line with Javon Hargrave, and I think they're better in the secondary when it comes to covering with Isaiah Oliver. I think he's a better slot cover guy than Jimmy Ward. And I think the run defense has helped out a little bit by Javon Hargrave being there as well.
There's no question that that Oliver is, really good in the slot. And it's like, I kind of feel like that's his home. He's found a home there. I think coming out of Colorado, he played, more outside. And I don't know that, it's difficult to make the transition from college ball to pro ball. And there were some bumps in the road. Then he had some injuries, but he's coming off of a terrific year. And man, I agree. He doesn't give the kind of physicality or tone setting hits or, that Jimmy Ward did, but I think coverage wise, the coverage could be quite a bit better. And because you're talking about a legitimate outside corner who's not quite as big or physical, but really does have great feet and great mirroring ability.
Yeah, I think he can do it. It's not, and he's better than what they have in Sam Womack, who I think Womack's a really good cover guy inside too, but his run defense, I think, is where he falls off and why they ended up moving off of him so early in the season once he started weeks 1 and 2. I think Oliver gives him a little bit better of a run defender there. He's an upgrade from Jimmy Ward when it comes to pass coverage. I think he's just maybe a tick below when it comes to the run defense, but I don't think it's really enough to say that it's a downgrade at all.
Last one, Jack. Is there a surprise need going into the draft that we're not thinking of? Is there some position that you think the Niners are prioritizing? It seems like the draft always tells us. Last year we were all expecting a safety, and they didn't go with the safety. Do they go big for a receiver when they don't seem to need one? Do they go early for a tight end when they've got George Kittle? Do you see a surprise coming, or is it, offensive tackle, corner, defensive end, primary three, and that's what they're going to focus on?
You almost stole my thunder right there when you said wide receiver, because I think that's the surprise position to keep an eye on is wide receiver. I know they have 5 that are really good, but how long, they're going to lose probably Ray after this season. I think they're going to lose Juwan Jennings after this season. It is time, if you can get a wide receiver that you can be able to easily slide in, that's where you do it. Even Brandon Ayuk, I think Ayuk is going to be here this season. I think he'll be here in 2020. He's going to be here this season in 2023. I think he might be a trade guy in 2024. I know that John Lynch said that they are going to pick up his fifth-year option. Well, they picked up the fifth-year option on DeForest Buckner a few years ago too. And then when it came time to make a decision, he was the one that was let go. And I think that could be the direction we see with Brandon Ayuk.
Jack, tell us what you got going on your channel this week. When are you streaming next?
Yeah, the next one is going to be tomorrow night at 7:00. I'm going to be doing a 49ers fan / content creator roundtable. So it's going to be myself and a few other folks. I did it last week for the first time. It's a lot of fun. Just throw out some comments and let everybody decide whether they like it or not. And then, we give up the topic, and that's our topic is basically buy or sell it. And if you buy it, then you agree with it. If you sell it, you don't. And it's a lot of fun. We're able to get through about 9 things in about an hour. And it's great for me. I like doing it. And then it's also great for those guys because it gets them some coverage as well.
What time?
7:00 tomorrow night.
Nice. All right. Everybody check that out. Jack, have a great rest of your day.
I will. Thanks for having me on, Larry. Appreciate it.
The great Jack Hammer, in the house on the Krug Show. All right. It's good to talk a little football with Jack Hammer. I'm going to join Wayne Breezy over on Breezy's channel. But first, thanks to our title sponsor, Pig in a Pickle. Check it out. Check them out. They're in Corte Madera. They're in Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week in Marin. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Man, it is fantastic. Get the pulled pork sandwich is absolutely incredible as well. It's juicy. They dice it up for you. They've got this incredible sauce, and absolutely, the pulled pork is fantastic. But I'm a brisket man. And the brisket sandwich is incredible. Just the brisket all by itself is absolutely amazing. And if you can, get a little bit of the brisket chili. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. Here's what it looks like in Corte Madera. Not quite.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, welcome back to the Krug Show. Hope everybody's having a good day. I'm going to go over with Wayne Breezy and hang with Breezy for a bit. Thanks to Jack Hammer. Thanks to all of you in the chat. Join me over on Breezy's channel. Thanks to our sponsors as well. And make sure you check me out later on tonight. Jesse Naylor. I'm going to be joining Jesse on his channel. But up next, I joined the great Breezy on his channel for the very first time. Thank you to everybody for being a proud supporter of the Krug Show, and help us get to 16,000. We're just around the corner from 16,000 subs. Should get there shortly. Look for our videos on YouTube. Thanks to all of you. CJ in the chat says respect. Larry B. Grindin'. There you go. To Breezy's we go. What did I say? To Breezy's we go.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah.